Today we're going to talk about Sky Harbor Resources, why this company is really two companies in one, why it has interesting near-term potential. It is a very interesting stock at the right price, because this could be one of the absolute high flyers in the late stage cycle of the uranium miners bull run. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Hot Trades of the Day, your show for swing trading ideas for the coming days, weeks and month. So this is the second part of the two-part series about the Uranium Explorer and Prospect Generator Sky Harbor Resources. The link for the first part of the video is here. I recommend you watch it first. Housekeeping first before we jump right into the presentation. I'm not getting compensated by the company for this video, and I do not own shares. I would be interested to pick them up at the right price, and you'll understand what I mean with this after you watch this video. So let's get right into it. So what makes Sky Harbor Resources special and makes the story special, but also very misunderstood, is that this is really two companies in one company. It is an exploration company because they have two projects that they're exploring actively, and it's also a prospect generator. So not a lot of people know and understand what that is. I'll make a separate video about this in the coming weeks because people really need to understand what this means and what they're talking about. The story sounds super fascinating and connects with retail, but they don't really understand what that means in reality. They think of prospect generators like incubators for the tech sector. So in Silicon Valley, you have incubators that offer infrastructure, network, financing to tech startup companies, and in exchange, they get a share of the company. So if any of these tech startups turn into the next unicorn, obviously that's a great deal for them. Prospect generators, to explain this real quick, do kind of the same thing. They buy up land packages really cheap, and one of the reasons why they can buy them up so cheap is because they're just that. They're not even projects in the majority of cases. They're just land packages where some geological tests or some closeness to existing successful projects of any type of mineral suggest there could be something there. So they buy it at a super early stage. That's why I don't call them projects, I call them land packages. And then they're not exploring them themselves. They would never have the money to explore all these land packages. Instead, they are selling them through joint venture agreements to other companies who then have to explore them. In most cases, this will mean that they'll give an option for the buyer to buy 50%, 75% of this land package, and then the prospect generator, Sky Harbor Resources, holds the remaining rest. And the idea is they get a certain percentage of a project, and if the company that's exploring it hits on a drill hole, then obviously the value of this project goes way up, and therefore the project of the part that, in this case, Sky Harbor Resources owns, and therefore the value of the company goes up. Okay, so we're gonna go to this part, and then we're gonna swing back to the exploration part of the two projects, Russell Lake and Moore, that Sky Harbor Resources has, because that is important for the valuation. So Sky Harbor Resources, the management, without a question, very, very cleverly built up a gigantic portfolio of land packages. It's 37 land packages, but if we subtract Moore and Russell Lake, so it's really 35 that are of the prospect generator status, that they have some deals with companies already for them. Some of them are still available if companies are interested in entering into option agreements with them or doing joint ventures. That is a staggering amount. And they did really well gobbling up a lot of land packages adjacent to the Athabasca Basin, which is, as you know, the #1 uranium mining area in the world. So that's great, but let's look deeper into this. So we have all these projects, these land packages really, because they're nothing more, with one exception, South Falcon. That one is explored more and is almost a legit exploration project at this time. But it is also very low grade. That is the problem. So this South Falcon already has an NI 43-101 technical report. That's great. But however, the grades are low. They're especially low for the Athabasca Basin. So the idea is this. They were able to get a lot of uranium junior explorers into agreements for certain land packages that they have. Now, they get paid some money, but usually it's not a lot, because we're talking these are junior explorers. They don't have a lot of money, so they get paid a little bit, and then they get paid in stock. Okay? So again, the story of the prospect generator is that these companies that enter into agreements with Sky Harbor Resources then do exploration. If they hit big, then obviously Sky Harbor Resources reaps part of the benefit without investing any capital. Sounds great. Now we get into the nitty-gritty and the reality, and that shows it's not that great. And here we come to the point why the management from Sky Harbor Resources really likes to push this narrative of the prospect generator, because it sounds great for retail, but retail doesn't really understand what that means. So the majority of the companies that enter into agreements with prospect generators are junior explorers or new commodity startup companies that are looking for projects for a certain metal or story that's hot. Uranium, for example. These companies are small. They don't have a lot of money. So I went through the market cap of some of the publicly listed companies that Sky Harbor Resources is having deals with for their land packages. Azincourt, 8 million Canadian market cap. Nexus, 5 million. TerraClean, 6 million. All Canadian. Thunderbird, 6 million. Mustang Energy, 12 million Canadian. That's not a lot. So these companies don't have a lot of money. These companies are not going to drill 20 holes. They don't have the money for that. They're going to drill 2 holes, maybe 3, and that's it. So that means the chances that these companies going to hit big on their projects are pretty low, because they're only going to drill 2 holes, right? So that is why you cannot really bet on it. Now, the upside story is obviously, as you can see here, if you look at this map, you can see this is the Moore project, this is Russell Lake. So these are the 2 exploration projects that Sky Harbor Resources has. Here, this is South Falcon. This is basically a hybrid at this point of, it's almost an exploration project. We're almost there. But again, what we have so far, the results, not impressive. Everything else that you see here, all this right here, all this up here, these are all the other land packages that Sky Harbor Resources owns, and the story is obvious. They're close together, so if one of them hits big, that could have a halo effect to the other projects that are not yet developed or undeveloped, and could lead to valuation increases. That's fine, but we don't know this, right? The exploration companies, they're going to drill 2 holes, 3 holes max. This is going to take time, and that's why I only see this as a bonus. Now, that leads us to the 2 exploration projects that Sky Harbor Resources has, and the exploration part of Sky Harbor Resources. They have Russell Lake. As you know, they own 57.7% of that. The other part of that joint venture is owned by Rio Tinto. That sounds really great. They have done a lot of exploration on this project. They drilled 230 holes altogether on this project over 95,000 meters. That's a lot. There is actually an NI 43-101 technical report from 2022, but Sky Harbor Resources doesn't really promote that. Why is that? Well, I read it, and the reason is the grades are not good. They are low. They're low in general, and they're specifically low for the Athabasca Basin. That is the issue. They keep drilling, hoping to find higher grades, I assume, but at the moment, if I look at these grades, yes, the project has uranium, but finding uranium is not the problem, right? We find uranium in the earth in a lot of places. The problem is to find it in high enough levels that it makes economically sense to mine it. I think at this moment, Russell Lake is a dud. So that brings us to the Moore project. That, in my opinion, is the way more interesting project. And this is the project that's going to decide if Sky Harbor Resources is going to go somewhere within the next 2 years. Sky Harbor Resources owns 100% of it. It looks much better. They're doing a lot of drilling on it as well. They published exploration results from this year's drilling in June. Those looked good. And the company plans to do an NI 43-101 report on it. That would be a major catalyst. If this comes out and is good, the whole company, which is valued at $75 million right now, would obviously be completely revalued. But right now, it is this valuation. And that is low. And the reason being, in my opinion, is because the market has sniffed out that Russell Lake is a dud, and that the prospect generator part of Sky Harbor Resources is really cool, but it's really not going to materialize too much short to medium term. Now, long term, here comes the interesting part. Long term, Sky Harbor Resources has the chance to be one of the big winners in the later parts of the uranium miners bull cycle. Why is that? First, we get the hype phase. So in the last part of the cycle, we get the hype phase. So then the story of the prospect generators and owning all parts of all these projects and having these gigantic land packages close to Athabasca Basin, that sounds great. Retail will eat it up. They'll push up the stock. There'll be new uranium companies coming into the market desperately seeking projects. So then it'll become a really attractive situation for Sky Harbor Resources where they can dictate the terms for the land packages, getting better deals for them. That's great. Third, as I said before, because these junior explorers and new companies don't have a lot of money, they usually pay a smaller amount in cash and then a majority in shares. Well, if we have the hype cycle, all the uranium stock, oh not all, but a lot of them gonna go up, which means these shares that Sky Harbor Resources get gonna increase in value, which, by the way, they will then sell on the market to bring in cash. But obviously, that's a lot more cash than they would get right now. I gave you the market caps of some of the partners that they have right now. There's nothing to be had there. So that creates the possibility for Sky Harbor Resources to become one of the big winners late stage cycle. Short term to mid-term, it's all about the Moore project. If the exploration there continues to be successful and they finally put out an NI 43-101 and that one is good, then the stock can go up significantly, because then we have an exploration company with a good project in the most attractive uranium area, let's call it, in the world, the Athabasca Basin. That's a great story. Okay? And then we get the prospect generator business on top. That's why I call it the bonus. As a standalone business, the prospect generator part will create zero value short to midterm. I don't mean zero literally, I mean it like as a figure of speech, so you understand what we're talking about here. It's the exploration that will drive the share price And that is why I say at the right price I would be interested in. 75 million is nothing for an explorer with an NI 43-101 technical report with a good project in the Athabasca Basin. However, it is a lot for a prospect generator. The reason why prospect generators work as a model in the capital markets is because they usually have very low valuations. And because they're valued so low, that then if one of their partners hit on one drill hole for one project, even if they only own 20-25%, the prospect generator only owns 20-25% anymore, that moves the stock price because the valuation is so low. 75 million for a prospect generator, even with the amount of land packages that Sky Harbor Resources has, that's a lot. So that's why I'm interested in Sky Harbor Resources only at the right price, which means a lower price, which I believe we'll be able to get. Yes, we take the risk that out of the blue, Sky Harbor Resources is going to come out with great exploration results for the Moore project, or unexpectedly, Russell Lake, also a possibility. Data so far suggests unlikely but possible, right? And that they move forward with the NI 43-101 technical report for the Moore project. But I rather wait because I know that the real party is going to start later cycle for Sky Harbor Resources. And I also know this is a very speculative stock. This cannot be a core holding in the uranium portfolio. But as a play, a leverage play on the uranium miners bull run late cycle, this stock is interesting. That's it for today. I hope this helps. Do your own due diligence. Maybe you like the stock. Well, maybe it is for you. Maybe it is not. It's for everybody to decide. I personally like the story, but you need to know what you're getting into, and you also need to understand the time frames. That's it for today. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.